You know, we say fight on around here a lot. You probably know that. We use it as a greeting, fight on. You'll be in Shanghai in the airport and somebody will be wearing a USC shirt and you say, fight on. But let's make it more than that. Fight on should be a call to action. Fight on should be a call to service. Let's continue together to fight on to end homelessness. Thank you all. Have a great day.
So good morning, everybody. I'm Ann Sewell, the Vice President for Health and Housing at the California Community Foundation, doing my Janet Yellen / Queen Elizabeth impersonation by carting my purse up to the podium. I served on the Federal Reserve Branch Board here for 6 years, and I always used to say, Janet, we'll watch your handbag. She's like, no. So, you guys look dicey, so I decided I wasn't going to leave it at my seat. But we have a great panel this morning, and I'm looking forward to them. I fussed a little bit at Gary and everybody here about the name of this. We're talking about innovations, and I'm, as my friend Andrea from the Hilton Foundation always says, and as Elise pointed out, we've been working on this for over a decade. We have tested this, we have peer-reviewed this. We know that supportive housing ends chronic homelessness. So yes, we're talking about innovations on how we do that, but we also are very pleased that we actually know the solution and we're not just kind of making it up and swinging from left field. So we're here to talk about more things we can learn and how we can change it, but trust us, we know what works and we know that HHH and H are putting us on the path to what will work, and we're very excited about that.
Okay, so for the past 2 years, USC has partnered with the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, otherwise known as LAHSA, to help conduct the Greater Los Angeles Homeless Count, which is actually federally required if you want federal money for homeless services. And I think when most people think about the homeless count, they think about participating as a volunteer in one of 3 nights where you literally go out and you count how many people you see living on the streets, in cars, in vans, in tents, and in makeshift shelters. It's a tremendous effort that LAHSA organizes to have that happen every year. They organize about 8,000 volunteers, probably many of you here in the room, people who just want to make a difference and help. What's less known about the homeless count is that in order to know who those people are, you actually have to talk to them, and that's not part of the volunteer count. You have to talk to them in order to know what proportion are men, women, or transgendered, whether people are older or younger, whether they're out there alone or with their family, or whether they've served our military, our country in the military and are now veterans. So that's where we come in. We essentially go out and we talk to people, we conduct a survey, we go to every corner of every service planning area in the county, of every council district, and we don't spend a lot of time with people. It's about 20 or 30 minutes, but we conduct surveys with about 5,000 people who are unsheltered. And this year that took us about 3 months. We started in the beginning of December and we wrapped up in early March. And the work of the survey team is done out of USC Suzanne Dvorak Peck School of Social Work, where I'm at, and then our statistical team, who I see here today, which is great, out of USC Schaefer Center, then takes that information in order to then extrapolate out to all those people that were counted by 8,000 volunteers over 3 nights in January. Now, I didn't come here today to talk about methods, though as an academic I'd be happy to spend as much time as you want talking about methods or ways to improve them. What I did want to do is talk about the human side of that project. The side where we have a team of almost 100 people made up of a lot of students. Close to 75 students participated, and they got trained in the survey, went out there. Many who didn't have any experience talking to people or working with people who have experienced homelessness. So they would go out there, both undergrads and graduates, along with surveyors that we got from Chrysalis Services, their job development service, many of them who at some point in their lives had experienced homelessness. And so the Chrysalis workers and our students went out together as teams, and they spoke to people. They learned from people living on the streets, and they learned from one another. Now, our team wasn't there to offer any help, really. We were there to collect information. although we did provide information to people, for instance, about how to protect themselves from hepatitis A outbreak, or if we knew of services that they might be interested, we could direct them that way. But what I can tell you, and what I've heard from all the surveyors, based on just having talked to people and getting a glimpse into their lives in that short period of time, is that we need to listen more. I think if we listen more, we'd know that, or at least we'd stop believing that the majority of people out there either want or choose to be homeless, that they're out there simply because of using drugs, or that they don't belong in Los Angeles and maybe came from somewhere else to be homeless here in the streets of Los Angeles. Look, to say it one way, I think the data just doesn't support those ideas. To say it another way, I think if we listen more, we'd know those things generally not to be the case. So the point I'd like to make in my 2 minutes, if I think I have 2 minutes, okay, is that I think we need to listen to more people who are living, who have the lived experience of homelessness at some point in their lives or now. And I don't just mean listening and offering thoughts and prayers. I mean listening and engaging people in the very solutions that we are looking to propose and implement. Thank you. I'm not necessarily saying this would be easy or even efficient in the short term. What I am saying is that people living on the streets are experts in their own right. And I think part of the reason that they're out there, look, if you talk to them, many people will take full responsibility for decisions that led them to where they are today. But I also believe that the reason that they're there today is because we tend to defer and listen to people in power. And not to take away from any of the expertise on our panel today, because we have plenty of it, and I don't want to talk myself out of a job, though I'd be happy to if it meant ending homelessness. But what I do just want to emphasize is the importance of listening to people. And so I would urge all of us in any solutions that are being proposed that we just pause for a moment and listen and think where are the voices of people who have experienced homelessness in that conversation. And so while I have more thoughts on that, I guess I'll stop now, and thank you all for the courtesy of listening to me today. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you very much to USC for this work and for convening us this morning. When the Board of Supervisors launched the LA County Homeless Initiative in August 2015, we set forth based on two fundamental premises that have animated our work since the beginning. And the truth of those premises, the basis for those premises, manifests itself every day. The first is that homelessness cannot be effectively combated by the County of Los Angeles by itself. Unlike most other issues in which the county is engaged, the county has neither statutory nor fiscal responsibility for having a leadership role on homelessness. The Board of Supervisors chose to adopt that leadership role because of the crisis of homelessness and their commitment to confronting it. And therefore, it's essential as we move forward, and we've seen this to such a great degree in the last 2.5 years, that all of the key sectors work together. The county, cities, community-based service providers, philanthropy, business, neighborhoods, and faith organizations. And secondly, mainstream criminal justice, social services, and health systems, most of which are part of county government itself, have a fundamental role to play in both preventing and combating homelessness. And based on those premises, we set forth to develop a comprehensive plan, a set of strategies to combat homelessness across all major homeless populations, families, youth, veterans, chronically homeless adults, and other homeless adults. And that culminated in February of 2016 in unanimous approval by the Board of Supervisors on February 9th of 47 coordinated strategies to combat homelessness. And uncoincidentally, the City of Los Angeles adopted the first ever its first ever comprehensive homeless strategy on that same day, February 9, 2016, exemplifying the depth and breadth of the collaboration and partnership between the city and the county. On that same day, the Board of Supervisors approved $100 million in one-time funding to enable us to jumpstart, to initially launch these strategies, and directed us to work together with the board to identify and achieve an ongoing source of revenue to combat homelessness. And that we did, as we've heard today, of course, on March 7th, 2017, in the stunning election outcome as referenced by Supervisor Ridley Thomas, 70% of Los Angeles County voters approved Measure H. A month before that, we hosted the first annual Homeless Initiative Conference with 500 people at the Los Angeles Cathedral. And that was the first day that many people began saying, we feel like we are part of a movement, a countywide movement to combat homelessness. So that movement is, in fact, moving us forward in the unprecedented collaboration that has achieved the results in the first 6 months that the supervisor mentioned. Over 7,000 people who have moved into interim housing between July and December 2017, thanks to Measure H. Over 4,000 homeless disabled adults who are on the path to federal disability benefits. Over 3,000 people engaged by new street outreach teams, and over 3,350 homeless families and adults who have secured permanent housing. And that's just in the first 6 months of Measure H. This is a movement that is unprecedented in our experience. It is almost never the case that an initiative in which government plays not the, but an important leadership role feels like a movement. This is not an organization. This is not a program. This is not a bureaucracy. This is a movement characterized by innovation, by passion, by collaboration, by boundarylessness, by egolessness, by commitment, and by inspiration. Our biggest challenge is inflow. We will succeed in achieving our goal in the next 5 years, in the first 5 years of Measure H, in enabling 45,000 homeless families and adults to secure permanent housing, and enabling 30,000 additional families and adults to avoid homelessness. And it's possible that the number of homeless people in Los Angeles County will be higher 5 years from now than it is today if we are not able to slow the inflow of people into homelessness. And the single biggest solution, the critical core solution to doing that, is to increase the supply of permanent supportive housing, affordable housing, and market rate housing. Nothing else will prevent rents from continuing to skyrocket. I'll close with a quote from the Buddha that to me is uniquely suited to the reality of the movement of which we and thousands of others who are not in this room are part. The Buddha said that a single candle can light 1,000 others without diminishing itself. And I see every day in my role as the director of the Homeless Initiative that there are many, many candles burning and many candles being lit every day. Thank you.
Thank you and good morning. I'm Sheree Todoroff. I'm with the Department of Health Services, and I am the acting and interim and deputy director of Housing for Health. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. Housing for Health was created under the vision and leadership of the prior director of health services, Dr. Mitch Katz, who, when he came to Los Angeles, one of his top priorities was seeing what was going on with the number of people who are homeless in LA County and how often they were coming to our hospitals and emergency rooms and how we were not effectively treating them or taking care of them and releasing them back to the streets and having them come back in again and not with any sort of improved health or wellness. And so what he did was he tasked us at that time with creating 10,000 units of housing created to the healthcare delivery system. With all that is going on in Los Angeles, that goal has now increased. He also wanted us to be especially mindful about how we were connecting people to the healthcare delivery system. So it wasn't just about getting housed, it was truly about improving health outcomes and wellness, and making sure that individuals were linked to a primary care provider and they had a regular place to go and get care, and they had the support of the mental health services and the substance use services that they needed as well. So that truly integrated package of services along with housing is what we've been seeking to build within Housing for Health. The population that we've been focusing on are individuals who are homeless and also those who have the most complex health and behavioral health conditions. And we've had a particular partnership in working with individuals who are exiting the criminal justice system as well. We have put together a continuum of services over the last few years. We're seeking to assist our clients with moving from homelessness to housing with as few transitions as possible and have it be as seamless as possible. And so we have a range of services from street outreach to interim housing to permanent housing. And we're also layering on top of that a range of benefits advocacy services that help clients get connected to those benefits that they're eligible for along that whole continuum. I have the pleasure of being here today and being the one to talk to you, but what I want to do is acknowledge that this work is actually being done by community services providers and homeless services providers across the county. We at Housing for Health are very lucky that we get to be in a position to support those organizations and the work that they're doing and to help get the money out the door to them so that they can do that work. But all of this work that I'm talking about today is done through our partners who are countywide in all of our communities who are working with the clients day to day. And so just a little bit on the street-based engagement. We heard a little bit from some of the other speakers earlier that we have been working with in each service planning area in the county, in addition to working closely with LASA, who's our partner in this, to set up a countywide street-based sort of engagement and outreach effort that has resources in every community, and that includes multidisciplinary teams that have a high level of expertise with a nurse on them and a mental health professional and a substance use counselor and a peer, and generalists as well, who are able to serve any client that they encounter with whatever their need may be. And so they always have the tools with them to be able to help whoever they're encountering. And the next step of that is assisting somebody into interim housing. And so the outreach teams also have that direct connection. So as soon as the client is ready to go in, to say, I am to be able to get them into that interim housing, especially that recuperative care, which is so important for individuals who are exiting institutions such as hospitals and jails who need that higher level of support to get stable in housing. And then we move on to the permanent supportive housing as well. We've been able to assist over 5,000 clients into permanent supportive housing. We have a goal this fiscal year of linking 2,500 clients to permanent supportive housing and close to 3,000 next year. That is all being done through the work with our community organizations and with the support of the Measure H funding. And then just on the benefits entitlement services, these teams that are now out there in every service planning area, also in our custody facilities, also in the Department of Public Social Services offices, are able to connect clients to those benefits that they're eligible for, such as SSI or veterans benefits. And this is so important to achieving housing stability and income stability. And I do see that my time is up. So what I'm going to do very quickly is just comment on how we know that this works and that the outcomes are very positive. With this around of sort of like a whatever it takes wraparound support, the housing retention rates at 1 year after housing are 96%. We're seeing decreases in use of emergency room services of 76%. We're seeing decreases of inpatient days of close to 70%. We are seeing just really, really positive outcomes. And so what we now have the opportunity to do with all of this collective energy and with the new resources is just to scale that. That's what our challenge is right now, is to scale that and to support the providers in doing that work. And I'm now over my time, so I will stop talking.
So I'm very happy to be here, and I've been pleased by the discussion and the presentations. I'm going to, I think, make it a little bit different. I have slides because I'm a slide nerd, and I can't talk without them. And then the other thing is I'm going to talk about the needs to also bring services to people in the encampments as a prerequisite for moving through them. So what I've done for the last 25 years is do work on the health needs of people who inject drugs. In California, that typically means heroin, methamphetamines, and cocaine. And I've had the pleasure of doing that work in Los Angeles for the last 18 years or so. And so I'm going to share with you some information that I have from this multiple studies I've done here to show the magnitude of the problem and then to suggest some recommendations about dealing with the health needs for this particularly needy population. So the first is that to the best of our knowledge, about 3 to 15% of the population of homeless people are folks who do inject drugs. In LA, it's a decent mix between meth and heroin users. For some of them, they became homeless probably because they were injecting drugs, and for others, they become injection drug users once homeless. And some of that is driven by some of the material deprivation that attends homelessness. So we have reports in my studies of people transitioning to meth use, for instance, so they can stay awake at night. So they won't be attacked. So they'll be awake and they'll walk the city and then they'll sleep during the day. And people who've been to Skid Row, you'll often see people sleeping on the streets during the day, and that's because of that. It's safer to sleep during the day. Or people do it to deal with pain or in anticipation of having to deal with violence in the community. So I won't talk about this. This is just sort of the basis of the 4 studies that I've done over the last 18 years in LA for different purposes. And so here's the key thing, which is that, so we have the chance to collect data in many communities and neighborhoods in Los Angeles. And the big take home here is that homelessness has increased among this population in nearly every neighborhood that we've been in recently. So it was high in Skid Row when we began, but it's even higher now, so over 90%. In East Los Angeles, it's doubled in the last 15 years. In Hollywood, it's increased substantially as well. And then South LA, it's gone up by about 50%. And then there are other areas outside of the city of Los Angeles and the county that have substantial numbers of homeless drug injectors. Anyone from El Monte or La Puente here? Few people, yeah, so all up and down the 605, the river there are many people who are homeless. Oh, 2 minutes left. All right, let me move on. The populations are very diverse. And so the point here is just that the approach in each of these areas is going to have to reflect those local communities, their drug use patterns, and then the sort of the attributes of those groups. So we need to keep that in mind as we move forward. So it's sort of not one size fits all. Lastly, they're at the risk for a great number of health risks. We had the recent hepatitis A outbreak in Los Angeles. Hepatitis C is endemic in this population. They have many other chronic health problems, elevated exposures to violence, massive food insecurity, and then they're often arrested and have jail time. So the key thing that I want to share with you is that we need to bring services to them in their encampments. So we need to build trust, but as we're doing that, we need to provide them with treatments and services at the sites that they are as we begin to move them into places that are more stable and healthier for them. And the great news is we have new technologies and substance abuse treatment that are great for that purpose. So we have buprenorphine, medically assisted treatment that's ideal for that kind of provisioning of services to this population and could have a substantial impact on the opiate-using component of that population. So we need to roll that out. We should contemplate using mobile methadone clinics and other mobile health services to reach this population where they are. One of the challenges of my work has been we have new things like we have great hepatitis C treatments now. But if we have to get them into primary care first to treat them, we're never going to make any ground on that. And then lastly, when folks move into settings, we need to have drug use tolerant housing so that they can remain housed. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. So we're going to stay seated for the question part. Brenda, how much time do we have for questions? I presume somebody will tell us when we need to stop. 5 minutes. Thank you. So we have some great questions from the audience and a couple we didn't cover. I guess one question I'd like to ask each of you briefly is, what role does lived experience, the views of people with lived experience or participation by people with lived experience play in the development of the work that you do, and how can that role be expanded? You want to just go down the row and start with you?
Sure. Well, I think I kind of emphasized that in my talk, and so I would just say, just based on the work I've done in the past, I mean, any program that serves homeless populations should have board members who have experienced homeless or are homeless, or an advisory group in some form that could do this.
Yeah, I think the role of people with lived experience is very important. I mean, generally in two categories, helping around design of programs, and then, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, and thank you. And secondly, actually working in the homeless services field. We worked with LAHSA to establish the Lived Experience Advisory Group from the onset of the homeless initiative, with people with lived experience could consult in program design, and that body continues to function, and there is a parallel, very exciting group as part of the Youth Coordinated Entry System for youth with lived experience. And as the number of jobs in the homeless services field has increased thanks to Measure H, there is substantial focus on hiring people with lived experience, particularly as members of outreach teams.
Yeah, I would echo what Phil just said, that the role is critical, that we were very fortunate to have people with lived experience participate on all of our sort of implementation teams to help us think about how we were designing and rolling out these services. In addition, with so much of the services out to the community-based organizations, those organizations have people with lived experience on their boards and are also hiring people with lived experience to be part of the service delivery system.
So the only other thing I would add is, so everyone is aware of the overdose crisis we're having in the United States of America. And one thing you may not realize is that in Los Angeles, it hasn't been that bad. And the reason is because of people with lived experience. So there's been massive naloxone distribution, which is the antidote for opiate overdoses, that's been provided to the community of people who inject drugs, and they've used it as intended. And so every day, hundreds of people's potential deaths are reversed by that. So I think that there's a lot of helping and support that happens within this community, and that we should move to a place where we can pay them for the work that they're doing that's in supportive. And we'll need to, because we're in a very competitive employment environment in Los Angeles. And one of the places where they have a competitive advantage is providing services to the people in their community.
Thanks. So quickly, what ways are we working to unite some of these alphabet soups? I don't even know. Department of Public Social Services, Department of Children and Family Services, Department of Mental Health, Department of Public Housing, Department of Public Health, SAPC, CDCR, et cetera. How are we working to bring them all together in the work to end homelessness? Because right now they seem to work in silos. Is that a Phil question?
Yeah, probably. Well, so yesterday I chaired the quarterly meeting of the 25 Los Angeles County departments who have been sustained participants in the County Homeless Initiative since the very beginning. So on that level of the conversation, among the county acronyms in the alphabet soup, we continue to work together in an extremely intensive way. There's people in this room like Sri Tadara from Maria Funk, with whom I have multiple meetings a week, just for example. So there is a very powerful network there of people working together. And then more broadly, there's a very extensive collaboration with cities. Of course, there's a particular role with the city of Los Angeles, but there are 45 other cities in Los Angeles County who are using planning grants from the county to develop their own city homelessness plans that are complementary to what's happening on a countywide basis. I think, so it's a combination of collaborative structures, and we have a collaborative leadership model in Los Angeles County around homelessness, where at the heart of this, we have the County of Los Angeles, the City of Los Angeles, United Way Home for Good, and the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority. And together, we convene a range of structures that promote the sort of collaboration that's addressed in the question. More broadly, what I would say is because we are a movement, we have alignment. So it's not only about form and structure, but it's about having a shared vision and swimming in the same direction. And that's what's happening across all of those organizations represented in that alphabet soup and many, many more.
Great. And sadly, I see the time is up sign. I want to thank the panel. There's some really great questions. I'll talk to Brenda about how we, if anybody knows about mentoring programs for people with lived experience who are now attending USC, yay for you. So young people, please let Brenda or me know and we'll pass that on. And there's a lot of other really great questions in here, so we'll try to figure out how to get that. Thank you all for listening to us. Thank you.